mother. M is for her mind of kindness and generosity, a standard for me. O is for her optimism, she never gave up on me. T is for her trust in the Lord, her faith in God, she taught me. H is for her heart of forgiveness, the love she gave me. E is for her eyes, the vision of the future which captured me. R is for her rewards she had while on earth, which comforted me. Put them all together, they spell mother, a word that embodies courage, faith, love, wisdom, vision, endurance, and peace to me. This book is moving. It is deep. Its pages are filled with special nuggets to inspire and to encourage us. The author so beautifully intertwines the true practical definition of a mother's love as he combines effectively biblical examples of mothers while telling his Caribbean story. It's truly a wonderful gift to all mothers and women. With excitement, I endorse and truly celebrate this book. We're going to talk about this new book, and it is a book from our author, Reverend Kenrick Burgess.
Our prolific author.
Prolific author.
Prolific writer.
He's now retired and he's writing. And writing is important.
Definitely.
I think it is something that we probably take for granted in terms of giving back and just writing to release what God has given you on the inside into the world.
Yeah. And the thing is, it is really important that we share what we have learned, share our experiences, share so many things that can be a benefit to other people, rather than going and, when the Lord calls us home, we go and we go with everything. But the good thing about writing is that it is recognized, it is preserved for history, and it's preserved for life, and other people can benefit. So we really want to appreciate, I appreciate my husband for writing and for sharing, for this phase in his life where he is sharing all that God has downloaded within him, through all the various experiences of life.
And so he did 2 previous books. Jerusalem Gate, which was a Bible study looking at the study of Nehemiah. And it was a devotional looking at each gate around Jerusalem and tying it in with the Christian walk.
And the significance of those gates. And that was really a revelation.
Yeah.
Because it was only then that it came alive. The whole account of the rebuilding of the wall and the gates and the fact that all of the gates have meaning and that the whole the whole wall and the gates reflect the Christian life. And that was very significant.
And so that was good. And then after he went into biblical project management, which was as a project manager, a detailed study into Nehemiah. And it shows how the word of God has everything.
Yeah.
That book of Nehemiah is powerful. Where God used Nehemiah and ministered to Nehemiah. He had a passion for his home, Jerusalem. Did that a week ago.
Right, it was
Last week, yeah.
last week Sunday. Yes.
And so when we open the book, we see that the book is dedicated to Margaret, my loving and virtuous wife of my youth, and a gracious mother of faith. And I think now Dad loved his mom a lot, and I think it is effective writing about a strong appreciation for mother, and a strong appreciation for the role of mother. And listen to me, for all the mothers who are listening to us on the live tonight, mothers are fantastic. Y'all are powerful. Y'all are dynamic, and the author brought this out so powerfully in the book.
Mhm.
Yeah, in terms of the fantastic and the strength and the powerful role of mother. And we're going to just look at some snippets just to whet your appetite and to just give you a little bit on what this book is about. You were going to say something before.
Yes, and I like the epigraph that he has. Until the lion learns how to write, every story will glorify the hunter.
Well, explain
This is an
that.
African proverb that one of his friends shared with him. One of his associates' wives, shared with him and she's an English person, yes,
Yeah.
and she shared this with us. Until the lion learns how to write, every story will glorify the hunter. It brings out the importance of writing your story, because if you don't write your
Yes, yes, if you
story,
don't.
other people will write something, and it may not necessarily be your story. So the hunter, when he writes, he will glorify himself. He will write things about himself and write his story.
Mm-hmm.
But when the
How
lion
we
learns to
capture the
write,
lion.
he will write it from his perspective. And when other people write about you or write your story, they will write their perspective. But when you write, you would write the true story, because you're writing about yourself, you're writing your story, and it's like,
Giving the real details
yes,
and not the paraphrase.
yes. So this is
version.
figurative. This is figurative, and
Interesting
it
phrase.
represents,
Interesting
that's what it's
proverb.
representing. That we must all come to the place where we write our story, where we share our testimony,
Yeah.
because only you know what is the full story. What is your full story? Only you know what is your full testimony, and what is behind it, and all your
Mm-hmm.
experiences and so on.
Mm-hmm.
So it brings out the importance of writing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people feel that what they have to say is insignificant.
Mm-hmm.
And you have to be this, you have to be that to have a significant story. But I think everyone is gifted, everyone has a different purpose.
Yes.
And there's a lot inside of you that can be released and shared with the world.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes,
And so
and it's important that people feel that you have to have a certain amount of education and knowledge and so on to be able to write, but not necessarily.
Mhm.
You just record your story.
Mhm.
You just record your testimony.
Mhm.
You put it down in writing, and if it
Mhm.
means that somebody else has to take it and fix it and interpret it for you, but
Mhm.
you record your story.
I remember that was one of the powerful things when we had the MAP sisters on the program, and they were talking, and Crystal was talking about the powerful uh, uh, role of women sharing their stories,
Mhm.
and women connecting with women, and women being able to help and to encourage women is when we share our stories,
Yes.
and it connects us and it brings us closer together. But back to this powerful book, Love That Will Not Let. I like that phrase, love that will not let me go. The truth is that a mother's love will not let you go.
True.
Yeah, it will not let you go. And so when I'm just going to read a snippet of the preface to the book, where the author um the author has given us a little snippet on mother. And so tonight we are glad to have all of you guys on with us. Tonight, after a month or so, I'm back live, and we're actually recording this live with Mom on Conversations with MB and PB. It's good to be back. You may be seeing me a little bit more. Work has been crazy and hectic. But tonight we are going to be doing a short review of this new book, Love That Will Not Let Me Go. And we're going to be doing it on our sessions every Sunday night. a little bit, have some interesting discussions. And we're also going to do a review on the topic that we have done for the past week before you say I do. So we welcome all of you guys who are with us. It is great to have you here with us. It's great to have you joining in on the conversations tonight.
And nice to see Monica Harvey.
Yes.
And welcome, Monica. Nice having you on tonight. Nice
Welcome,
having
Miss Eastland
Eastland.
Haynes,
Yes.
Reverend Burgess, and to all the others who are viewing with us, if it via YouTube, via our Facebook page, via our Facebook group, for those of you who are going to be viewing later. And so I love how the author really gives me, when I read the preface to the book, it gives me a wow about what the book is about. And so I'm just gonna give you all a little nugget. He says, mother, the one word that cannot be defined in a single phrase. It epitomizes all the love of a human being could possibly offer. A mother represents the blend of feelings, behaviors, and sacrifices that occur while developing a child. Mothers think of the future because they give birth to it in their children. Mothers leave all their personal needs behind so their children can have everything they need. They will not sleep or eat until they come home and they know their children are safe. That's true. Mothers will protect their children with the price of their own lives. Mothers think nothing is beyond their power when it comes to their children. A mother's love is peace. A mother's arms are tender, and children sleep peacefully in them. Sometimes the strength of motherhood is greater than natural laws. The truth is that no matter how old we are, we want our mother.
Yes.
That's powerful.
Yeah.
Listen to me. I'm not a mother as yet, but I have seen mothers, and I think that this paragraph really captures a mother.
Mm-hmm.
And for all of you guys who are on the live who are mothers, this really captures a mother. A mother's love is sacrificial. She comforts. She loves her kids. She for all my friends and family members who've had kids, they say, Peggy, it changes your life.
Mm-hmm.
The kind of love that is felt for a child is this powerful love.
Yes, and you wonder where it comes from. And it had to be that we were designed that way.
Mm-hmm.
That was God's plan. Because when we remember we're going to come to the part when we start to talk about the marriage vows.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But in the introduction to the marriage vows,
Mm-hmm.
the minister will always say that marriage was created by God
Mm-hmm.
for family and for procreation,
Mm-hmm.
right? So God designed us so that we would have children, and that is how God designed living things,
Mm-hmm.
so that living things would reproduce and produce after their kind. And when you look at Genesis talks about how God designed so that each would produce after their own kind. And it had to be God that plays a natural love within a mother.
Mm-hmm.
Because do you really learn to mother? I know you learn examples from your mother, right?
And a lot of mothers tend to. That's true, because you according to the relationship that you have with your mother,
yes,
you
it
display that. It influences how you mother your child.
But a lot of it flows out of you naturally.
Mm-hmm.
And it had to be coming from God. We were designed that way. I think mothers were specially designed to be mothers.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, women were designed to be mothers.
Interesting.
Yes,
Mm-hmm.
It's God that placed that within us, that natural love for our children.
Mm-hmm. And so I love how he captured.
And then when he talks about mothers leave all their personal needs behind,
so their children
can have everything they need.
Yeah.
And that's true. Yeah. As mothers, we tend to be sacrificial, and we are willing to sacrifice for our children's sake.
You will starve so that your child will have.
So that your child will have food.
Yeah.
And you will make sacrifices so your child can be properly educated, that you make sacrifices for your children. It just flows.
It's a natural sacrifice and deep love for your child.
And also, I think it develops out of, as a baby, there there are times when your child goes through different stages. I remember when, like during the teething process, for instance, and when the child is restless and most likely experiencing pain and can't sleep. And as a mother, you can't sleep and leave your child crying and your child is uncomfortable. So it just comes naturally that you will stay up all night with that child. The child is not feeling well, the
That's
child
true.
can't sleep, and you as a mother, it is, even though no matter how tired you are,
You up with the children.
yes, you
And
stay
so
up
I've
with the
had
children.
conversations with mothers who have the difficulty of putting their children to sleep. When I spoke with my cousin, his strategy, she has a strict bedtime for her kids. And when I said, how did you do it? I'm advising other young mothers who are struggling. And she says, you've got to leave them in the crib and let them cry. And she says,
But it's
it
difficult to do
pains,
that at
She
first.
said it hurts,
Yes.
You just want to go and pick them up and cuddle. But after a while, they will play with their little toys in the crib, and then they will suck their finger or whatever, and then they will fall asleep. And so I have been counseling some other mothers who are struggling with
Yes.
with their children, who their bedtime. That is a difficult aspect.
But
And
it calls for a lot of discipline.
yeah.
And two, you have to understand that children are smart. Children are bright.
So they know how to control
Children,
you.
they know after a while they learn. And therefore as a mother, you have to recognize too that you cannot, you spoil the child by allowing that child to control you. If every time the child cries, you run and you grab them up, you run and you pick them up. There's a natural tendency to want to do that.
Mm-hmm.
But then as mothers, we have to recognize too that we can't spoil our children. And that your children, sometimes children come to the point where they learn to control you. They learn to control parents.
So they're in charge. They're in
Yes.
charge of the parents as
They're
young
smart.
as they are. The youngest in the family, but
They're
they are
very
the
bright.
controllers.
They're very bright. They're born with all their sense. And therefore, it's a balancing act.
Yes.
You know?
In terms of mothering. But
Yes.
it's a powerful role and it's a powerful ministry being a mother.
It's a very important
It's an
ministry.
important ministry,
Yes.
being a mother. And so he gives that initial paragraph in his preface, giving us a summary of the book. He says, growing up with my mother from birth until I became a man was one of the most enjoyable and blessed seasons of my life. She ensured that I completed early childhood education, primary school and secondary school education, graduated with honors from the University of the West Indies, and got my first job as a civil engineer in the Ministry of Works and Transport. My mother, a single parent of humble beginnings, sacrificed and had a dream for her son that became a reality. I love my mother. She was an overcomer. I still miss her very much. Her love will never let me go. And that's powerful. I think one of the powerful points that we talk about here is a single parent home.
Mm-hmm.
And the extreme sacrifices that we see. And our society is our single mothers sometimes tend to be neglected. But their sacrifice to raise their children.
Yes. Yes.
And to put in, because now you don't have the support of a father all the time. I was reading an article from Tobago and that whole issue in terms of fathers maintaining their children, etc., etc. But that sacrifice of a single mother is powerful.
Yes, extremely powerful. And one of the things I was looking at a point that he said here. He said, my mother had a dream. Yes, she had, my mother, a single parent of humble beginnings, sacrificed and had a dream for her son that became a reality. And it's important that mothers have dreams for their children. That mothers have a vision. They see their children. It's important that you set goals for your children as mothers.
Such a great example and sacrifice that mothers will display, especially our single mothers who may have to do 3 jobs so that these dreams can come to fruition.
To reality.
And so he gives us a snippet. So he introduces with a powerful definition and with imagery of mother. And then he's writing from his experience being, and so he says, this book is rich in imagery, drama, emotions, triumphs, and memories. I have divided it into 18 chapters and 7 sections. It is for men and women. It is for fathers and sons. It is for mothers and daughters. It is for teachers and students. It is for young men and ladies. It is for pastors and preachers. It is a must read before you say I do. I love that.
Before you say I do.
And we're going to go to talking about before you say I do. And so just to briefly summarize the sections to the book, section 1 is Mother's Precious Woman. Section 2 is Eugenia's teaching, and the author's mother name was Eugenia. And so he gives us a little bit of what he learned from his mother.
Yes.
And I thought those teachings were powerful, which is what we're going to go in depth as we discuss the book over the next couple of weeks. Section 3, Triumphant Mothers. Section 4, Mothers' Faith in Action. Section 5, Mothers Keep on Giving. Section 6, Mothers' Strength and Power. And section 7, Thanksgiving and Love of Mothers. And so we're going to hear about his experience and learn about the Caribbean mother and what she did for her children. And Eugenia had 6 children.
Yes.
Right. And we're going to look at the biblical mothers in the Bible, which were examples to us, which he also goes in and which he also studies. And looking at all these characteristics of a mother whose love will never let me go. I really love that name.
And very significant characteristics like faith in action.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
strength and power.
Mothers keep on giving.
Yeah.
Give and keep on giving. Precious mothers.
Yeah.
Yes.
And so he says here, let's just read this part in chapter. So he says, when he talks about section 1 with precious mothers, he gives us a little snippet on his mother. In chapter 3, Eugenia is a Caribbean mother, and I love that. I love how he brings it into local, you understand? He says in chapter 3, Eugenia is a Caribbean mother who lived on planet Earth for 103 years, 6 months, and 23 days. Is encountered and eulogized. Eugenia was born on the 3rd of November 1913 and was married in 1935 during the Great Depression. She lived through World War I, 1914 to 1918, World War II, 1929 to 1945. And then he goes into talk about the Great Depression, which was a worldwide economic downturn that began in 1922. So she was 103 years. 1929 and lasted until 1939.
10 years.
Yeah.
It caused drastic declines in output, severe unemployment, and acute deflation in almost every country of the world.
Mm-hmm.
And the Spanish flu pandemic of 1918, which infected an estimated 500 million people. So you think COVID is anywhere close to that? 500 million people were infected, and about one third of the planet's population then, and killed an estimated 20 million to 50 million victims.
Mm-hmm.
The 1918 influenza pandemic was caused by an H1N1 virus with genes of avian origin. It spread worldwide during 1918 to 1919. And the Lord kept Eugenia through all of that.
Yeah.
You know,
being a powerful mother.
Spared her life for 103 years.
Yeah.
That was very, very, as powerful, as significant.
I love these little snippets. Looking at the foreword, our General Superintendent of the Wesleyan Holiness Church also gave us his point of view. And he says here, so we're just going to read a little. As General Superintendent of the Wesleyan Holiness Church in the Caribbean and Chairman of the International Board of Wesleyan Church, I'm honored to provide some insight into Love That Will Not Let Me Go, written by my friend and colleague, Reverend Dr. Kenrick H, with whom I have worked closely over the years in his capacities in the Caribbean Youth Department, pastor, member of the General Board of Administration, and Director of Global Partners Caribbean, which is the world missions arm of the Wesleyan Holiness Church. The book provides a gripping commentary of the character and contribution of godly mothers whose legacies are highlighted in the Bible and continues to inspire humanity globally. Concomitantly, it chronicles the value of family relationships and the key role mothers play in the nurture and development of their respective families, societies, work environments, and the many other contexts in the function. And listen to me, a mom is solid in a family, When a mother is lost, a family is rocked.
Oh, yes.
Especially if she was that kind of mother.
Mm-hmm.
There's this kind of stability.
Right. And the
That
mother like
mom,
glues the family together,
yeah,
holds the family
yeah,
together.
yeah.
Of course, with love. It's love that will, especially if there's the love of God in the family. That is what keeps the family together. But the mother is kind of like the central pin in the middle of the wheel,
Mhm.
holding the family together. So,
Solid. She's a
yes,
solid part of the family. He
yes.
says Kenrick skillfully focuses on his unique Caribbean socialization and the depth of creativity and ingenuity which his mother brought to bear in his development, effectively utilizing her breadth of religious, cultural, intellectual, and social skills in the process.
He also paid glowing tribute. Oh, okay. The book goes behind mothers,
Mhm.
and family to capture essential aspects of Christian doctrine and practice, as well as Caribbean history and culture. Indeed, the culinary dishes identified in the text are reflective of the diversity which is part of life in this beautiful geographical space called the Caribbean and immeasurably contributes to the unforgettable experience of visitors to our
Visitors in his
shores.
shores. And
Yes,
so
that was a powerful poem.
it is indeed a study. And tonight we just giving you a little piece. I mean, and I think the topic of mother is powerful, and that's what I like about that's what I like about this book, being a different perspective, being a tribute to the author's mother, and also acknowledging and tributing women and celebrating women who are mothers. And it also comes as an encouragement to mothers. And sometimes in the midst, as mothers being all this strength, sometimes mothers can feel forgotten. We do everything. Mothers can feel
Yeah, and
underappreciated because
sometimes
we
they
just
feel,
naturally dump things on you and mommy will handle it. But we can take you for granted as well. And I think this is a piece of work that celebrates and pays tribute to a powerful and a strong mother, but also celebrates women as mothers and saying, mothers, we see you, mothers, we appreciate you, mothers, this is what God has given me to encourage you. And as children, as sons, as daughters, as brothers, as sisters, as husbands, as fathers, we are getting into understanding the value of motherhood, the value of a woman, the sacrifice that she makes. And this is what we're going to learn as we
and I
continue.
think that is extremely very important because of the fact that so many times mothers are taken for granted,
Mhm,
and women in general they are taken for granted, and
mhm.
all the things that they do, the contributions they sometimes we just take it for, we don't really pay much attention to
Yeah.
it, and we don't recognize how important it is. So that is what is important about this book.
Just to finish a little bit more what Reverend Cumberbatch has said, with a declining emphasis on spirituality in an increasingly humanistic and secular society, the book calls upon the reader to renew, recapture, and reinforce the basics with respect to our orthodoxy and orthopraxis as Christians. Those pillars of faith, which is what that was a whole chapter. The Lord's Prayer, the Ten Commandments, the Apostles' Creed, selected from Psalms 23, 91, 121, as emphasized by the author, and which featured prominently in his early spiritual formation, must again be an essential part of the process of indoctrination in our homes, in our schools, in our places of worship. I wish to further reiterate the sentiments of the writer who stated, let us not forget the mothers whose names are not mentioned in scriptures, but God rewarded their greatness through their sons and daughters. This work has set the pace in this regard.
And that's important. There are many mothers in the scripture. In fact, you hear about their children, you hear about their sons. Like you've never heard of the mother of, you never heard about the mother of Paul. You never heard of the mother. Did we ever hear about the mother of Daniel? Or did we ever hear about the mother of, a lot of the outstanding people, right? We never heard
We
about their
heard a little
mother.
piece of Moses' mother, Jochebed.
Yeah, we heard about Moses' mother.
We know
But
about Samuel's mother,
did,
Hannah.
did we hear about Abraham's mother? Did we hear about Daniel's mother? You know,
No,
so there are a lot
we
of
got.
women in the Bible who raised raised sons who and daughters
Mhm.
who played a significant role in the Bible
Mhm.
who played a significant part, particularly sons who played a significant role. They were leaders. They were
Mhm.
outstanding, powerful men of God. Right? I don't think we ever heard about Joshua's mother. Yes, and
Mhm.
so, but you heard about David's father, Jesse.
Mhm.
But did we ever hear about
We never heard about David's
David's
mother.
mother? Yeah. So, but these mothers obviously were strong and powerful mothers
Yeah.
because when and you see that from their children,
Yeah.
and from the kind of children that they raised.
Yeah.
Yes, and so that was one of the things that is significant about this book, in that he spoke about mothers who were unnamed
So Rev
but
continues to
important.
say, I therefore highly recommend it as an excellent tool for use by parents, students, educators, community and cultural practitioners, and church leaders, among others. Undoubtedly, the reader will find the information useful for Bible study, history lessons, motivational talks, and much more. Kenrick draws on his vast years of experience as a civil engineer, project management consultant, youth leader, pastor, educator, husband, and parent to produce this offering, which is well worth your investment and engagement. I wish to guarantee you a refreshed appreciation for women, wives, and mothers whose virtue, nobility, and value remain inestimable assets, even in our contemporary society. Having been shaped and nurtured by a mother par excellence, the author freely shared her story and his reality. I have no doubt that as you read, pleasant memories of your own mother, child experience will overwhelm you in a positive way as it has been for me. I wish you, the reader, happy, inspired reading blessings. Reverend Dr. Joel Cumberbatch, General Superintendent, the Wesleyan Holiness Church in the Caribbean, Chairman, the International Board of the Wesleyan Holiness Church. That was an excellent forward.
Yes, powerful.
And so, ladies and gentlemen, this is a snip, this is a taste. What we plan to do until we have our official book launch is to give you little snippets. Let's talk a little bit about mothers. I think when I was in pediatrics, and these mothers are coming in with their children. Listen to me. And when we had to do, like if you have to take blood from the child, some mothers can't handle it. Say, Daddy going inside. The mother's outside crying, right? But it's the nurturing, and you see these mothers sit in the emergency room for
Bonding.
others. Those mothers
Strong
who had
bond
children who
between
were
mother and child.
asthmatics,
Yes.
and the child have to be in the ER for 6 hours for the whole night, and the mother there, she's sitting on a chair, you know. Her child in a bed, and the mother is on the chair, that hard
And she not
chair for the
moving.
whole night.
And she's not moving.
All kinds of mothers. I have
Yes.
met all sorts of mothers, different ages of mothers. And I must say that the author has truly captured, and he has brought to our attention, let us celebrate women. And I think that is big. That is big.
That's important.
Let us
Significant.
celebrate and be grateful for the mother that we have had. And so,
I like what he just acrostic that he produced in section 1, Mothers, Precious Women. M is for her mind of kindness and generosity, a standard for me. O is for her optimism. She never gave up on me. T is for her trust in the Lord. Her faith in God, she taught me. H is for her heart of forgiveness and love she gave me. E is for her eyes, her vision of the future, which captured me. And R is for her rewards she had while on earth, which comforted me. Put them all together,
They
and they
spell
spell
mother.
mother, a word that embodies courage, faith, love, wisdom, vision, endurance, and peace to
fantastic.
me. Amen. Amen.
Amen. Fantastic. You want to read Love That Will Not Let Me Go. And so, Mom, I'm really close to you.
Yes, because of the love that will not let you go.
My mother's love is not going to let me go. She has one child. But the truth is that I just love being with you. Like, I just feel as if I am not gonna, as older as I am now, and as independent as I am now, I think that I have learned who I am. Is a combination of my parenting, but who I am, I'm just like you. The nurturing, the motherness, the kindness. I have really adopted a lot of qualities that you have taught me, which I'm able to share and to display to others. And I really appreciate you. But I always tell you how much I love you every day, though.
Yes, all the time.
Yeah.
All the time. Day and night, all the time.
I
But
don't,
the thing is, and um, that is the importance of motherhood, that we teach our children through life, through life experiences.
yeah.
Yes, through the way we deal with them. It's a bond that develops, a
Yeah.
bond that develops between over the 9 months, and then even after that 9 months, that child is with you all the time. You're nursing the child, you feeding the child,
Mhm.
and I think one of the advantages that we had too was that when you were a little child, when you were going to school, I was also going to school
Mhm.
because I was teaching while you were in school, so we were always together, vacation, during, and I thank God for that, because that time I wasn't a lawyer as yet. So we had vacation together, we had weekends together, we were always together, home together, everything together. And that is an important thing. The time that you spend with your
Yeah,
children
it's important.
is so
The
important.
quality time.
And quality
Quality
time.
time is
Spending
important.
quality time with your
Nurturing
children.
us to be women that will be prepared for the next part of our conversation that says, before I say,
Yeah.
I do.
Yes.
And so the bonding, and I think one of the things that has made our relationship so strong is that my mom likes to talk. Listen to me. Up to now, every day is a lesson in a conversation.
Mm.
So just the other day, we were talking about some. She come and sit down on my bed and talking a story, right? To get the message across that, Peggy, you have to learn this in a story. You use stories from your childhood and from Granny, because my grandmother, which is mom's mother, was also that kind of person,
Right.
who was very involved in all her grandchildren lives, and would sit on the bed and everybody sitting on the bed and telling a story.
But that's where I learned that from too. And that's where I learned mothering from my
Yeah.
mother.
Yeah.
Because that's the kind of person she
Yeah.
was. And
And so-
and the thing about it is that in those days mothers didn't work. In fact, they had decided, because my mom told us that before she was married she was working.
Mhm.
But when she got married, she and daddy decided that she would stay home and look after the
Yeah.
children.
Yeah.
And so she was always there when we went home, and she would always be there to pay attention. Although she had 6 children,
Yeah.
she wasn't like me that had one. She had 6, and she had to share her time between
With
all
all
6.
six, and then all
All
grandchildren.
6, and then all the grandchildren that she
Yeah.
has and all that. Yes, so we
And
learn from
even
our parents.
You
We
learn from your
our
parents.
mothers.
You learn from
We
your
learn
parents.
from our
And you learn from your
mothers.
mothers.
Yes.
And even Granny Burgess, Eugenia, who you're going to learn more about in the book, she lived not far from us. So I
Yes.
would go by her when I was a child, and still there was that. And what he says is true. As her granddaughter, there was that wanting to protect and to feed, and she would cook a good curry body and rice when we go across. She would go by the shop to buy things for us, because as little children we want to eat snacks.
Yes.
And there was a sense of protection. There was a sense of wanting
security.
to provide a sense of security,
Mm.
in terms of how she was consistently to her grandchildren. And so I am excited about celebrating women. I'm excited about celebrating mothers, when our society, we are seeing that some of our women and mothers are being battered, they are bruised, they are being murdered. The author has bring some light in the darkness
Yes.
of saying, let us celebrate this powerful woman and the whole concept of motherhood, to kind of dispel the darkness that we have in society today.
Yes.
And I think it's an excellent conversation. So
And
we're going to
so-
continue conversing
Yes.
next week.
And so we encourage our listeners to
Yes.
get a copy of the book.
Yes.
Get a
And
copy
so
of the
we're
book.
going to tell them as we go along.
Yes, as we go along.
And as we launch.
Yes.
But we want to go into this interesting topic for the next 20 minutes. Which is what we did this weekend. We had
Before
some
you
guest
say, I
speakers.
do.
Listen to me, we had some real stalwarts this weekend talking. I mean, people who married 50 years,
50
30 years,
years,
43 years. But mommy, and you see, we're seeing this kind of, I admire that. These kind of long-standing relationships that we see. Again, what builds a strong marriage? What builds a strong relationship? Definitely your motherhood and what you would have seen as a child, right? But we heard from speakers this week who was solid. They gave us solid tips about before I say I do. This thing called marriage is no joke. This thing called marriage is a serious thing. How is it that you were able to maintain relationships for so long, so consistently? We are seeing today a struggle, both in the church and secular, with a rapid increase in divorce among our young people,
Yes.
right? And relationships are being shattered.
Well,
They're being shattered. And what would you say is the reason? Especially in the church. Divorce is left, right, and center in the church.
yeah.
What is going wrong? What have we done wrong? How is before I say I do important?
Well, let's start with what we did right. Before we talk about what we did wrong.
What we did wrong, what
Yes,
we did right.
because it goes right back to foundation.
Mhm.
If you build your house, it's like Jesus said it. If you build your house upon the rock, it will stand. If you build your house on sand, it will fall. So key to a successful marriage is your foundation,
Mhm.
right? And the significant and the most significant part of your foundation, I would say to anyone, is that your foundation must be in Christ.
Full stop.
Full stop.
So that is what you will say to us singles who
You
you
have to be
got
grounded.
to. I've heard that multiple times. You've got to be grounded.
Grounded in Christ. You have to be
Your
firmly
relationship.
rooted and grounded in Christ. Now, I'm not saying, sometimes a person might be going to church, but they're not grounded in Christ.
Yeah.
Right? It's two different things. It's a different thing to be, a church goer, attending church, you're a church member and all that. But the question is, what sort of relationship do you have with the person Jesus Christ? Is he the Lord of your life?
Mm.
That's key. Because you know what? Marriage is about sacrifice.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of sacrifice in marriage. Yes? And the only person that can help you to make the kind of sacrifices that you are required to call for in marriage is Jesus.
Yeah. Yeah.
Trust me, that's all.
Pastor Peggy Lynch here says marriage takes more than love.
Yes.
So all this lovey-dovey Hollywood nonsense that we see, that everybody getting caught up in that,
Because
in the wedding dress, in the size of your ring. And then what is sad about it is that after you spend $1,000 on the dress and the ring,
and
you're divorced in 5 years.
It doesn't last as long as you Red House Fire. Some of them been lasting as long as you Red House Fire, which happened days. Which took days.
And it is devastating, Mom. I think it's devastating.
There is not that proper foundation and okay, so when you're going to build a house, what do? You have to prepare. There must be preparation. There must be adequate preparation.
Well, you have to do your research on the property that you're going to buy. You have to do your background
checks. You have
checks.
to do a title search.
And we getting excited.
First thing you have to do is to do a title search for the land. Before you buy land, do a search and make sure that you're not buying somebody else's land. Same thing. When you get it in marriage, you have to do background checks, find out what you're getting into. This thing is not about superficial face and looks. Nowadays, what is happening is that a lot of young people are being attracted by look and shape and complexion and hair and all them kind of things that are superficial. That is not the person. What you see on the outside is not the person. The person is who is on the inside.
Yeah.
Who is on the inside? Who is that person really?
I was reading something and I was looking at character, and character is who you are on the inside. And a lot of times I think in young and in today we are so fickle.
Yes.
And so
superficial.
you be so superficial, and so we look at how people look and the kind of jobs that they have.
Okay, so that is the kind of
status.
Those are the kind of values.
Who are you really?
Yes, those are the kinds of values that are being pushed
in culture and in society
by
today.
Social media, by everything. There are superficial values, what you look like, what you have, how much money you have, and all that. That has nothing to do
with your surviving.
With a proper foundation for marriage.
Yeah.
Right? And yes, you have nice weddings and so on, and stretch limo and all kind of stories. But at the end of the day, the wedding is not the marriage.
Mhm.
The marriage is the relationship after that wedding day.
And what happens?
That is what happens after.
There was an article a few years ago where a man murdered his wife and himself. And the news article posted the picture of their glamorous wedding day
Mhm.
and titled Man Kills Wife. And I'm saying to myself, and that struck me, is what they did. They showed the picture of them as a married couple and everybody smiling and happy.
Everybody
and then the
happy.
title is that man murders wife
Yeah.
and kills himself.
Yes. So there was no foundation.
And there's no foundation.
No foundation. And as Peggy Lynch was saying, marriage requires you to be determined to serve God, serve your spouse, and be comfortable and content with who you are.
Mm-hmm.
And that's true. It calls for service. There's a lot of service. There's a lot of sacrifices, like giving up of, it's like giving up, a lot of yourself to serve. It's about service too, right? And that is why it's important to know a number of things before you say I do.
So we're going to just summarize what some of our preachers did this week and look at the important points that are important for, I guess it's for us singles to take note of and not to get carried away by butterflies and height and good looks. Total, utter nonsense.
Yes.
You understand what
All
I'm saying?
dark and handsome stories. And they talk about the woman and shape and whatnot. But listening to, first we had Reverend Williams. He's
one of our pastors,
yes,
from Curacao Church.
From Curacao.
Original Barbados.
Former General District Superintendent of the Barbados District.
Mm-hmm.
And he shared a very powerful message on, I take thee to be my wedded wife. What is the significance of that? And he started by talking about the significance of the marriage vows. And quoting the scripture, which says, therefore shall a man leave his father and mother and cleave unto his wife, and they two shall become one flesh.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, and he said marriage was initiated and instituted by God. It was God decreed that how marriage ought to be. And that marriage ought to be, there must be severance. Therefore, a man shall leave his mother and father. So you must sever from your parents. That is one thing. Then there must be coalescence. They shall become one flesh. And he talks about that as a weaving of the persons together. And then there must be permanence. So therefore, it calls for, and all of this is sacrifice. Sacrifice, because you have to leave, you have to sever that bonding, that close relationship. Now, yes, you're going to continue to be related to your family, because when you marry into a family.
Mm-hmm.
But then you have to recognize that there's a certain amount of severance that has to take place so that you can cleave to your spouse. Right? You can cleave to your spouse if you're going to become one flesh. It means, so here it is, you are leaving your parents, leaving the home, and you are setting up your own home, your own relationship, a new relationship with your spouse. There are some people that enter into marriage, but they're not prepared to leave their parents. Some people don't want to leave their parents home. That's one thing. And
see that in our culture today,
yes,
where the married couple goes and lives
they
into the
continue
parents'
living
home.
with the parents in the parents' home. They do, and the other thing is too, they don't want to leave. There are some people that remain dependent on their mothers to do everything, for them. Some women, they're not prepared to be independent and to set up their home. And you are starting something fresh.
Mm.
You are starting something new.
And so that is important. So what you're saying is not that you're ignoring your mom after you get in a relationship, but you have to be independent and mature enough to realize that, hey, I have to take responsibility. I have decided to love this person, to commit to this person, to live with this person. We did it the right way. Now I have to be responsible as a woman in setting up my home, being mature, stop the childishness,
yes,
and start doing what you have to do.
Taking up my responsibility as
a woman.
First as a wife, and then when the children begin to come, then
as a mother.
As a mother.
But
So
mommy, before we do that, I think would you say that people don't understand what is marriage and what is the definition of
I
marriage?
don't. I think
Everybody
so.
wants to get married, everybody wants to be in a relationship, everybody wants to be coupled, everybody wants to post a picture on Instagram and Facebook and show off who had the best wedding. But do they even understand what's the definition of marriage
No, a lot
and
of
what it
times
is about?
people don't understand what marriage is, and this is why the minister always tells you, and the marriage vow starts with that marriage is not something to be entered in unadvisedly.
So you need to.
Unadvisedly, right? It is not to be entered, as Reverend Williams was saying, it is not to be entered into thoughtlessly, but reverently in the fear of the Lord. It's serious. It's something that's serious. It's not something that we can be flippant about,
Mhm.
and it's not what definitely not what we see on the
Yeah,
movies.
we see on TV.
It's not definitely not what we see on TV. As he went on, he also pointed out that marriage is the culmination of the demonstration of love. It is a deliberate, calculated decision to leave all and cleave to each other. Yes. So I think a lot of the problem that we're having today is because many seem not to understand or to take the time to really find out about what is this marriage thing is about.
And
Yes.
you'll realize how serious it is.
Yes.
And what you're getting into is a serious,
Yes.
serious
Yeah.
a
And
covenant relationship.
yes, and as he went on, he said God intended marriage to abide in peace, to abide in understanding, and abiding, he said, an abiding understanding is required. We must understand the vows taken in the presence of God.
And that may not be the case. People may not understand what
No,
they're
a lot
getting
of times
into.
you don't understand. You don't understand the vows. You don't understand. You say the vows. They say after me, and you say after you say after them. But the question is, do you really understand? And that's why we see it important. We see it important to go through this. In our days,
Y'all didn't have all of
counseling was
that.
not as we had counseling, but not like today. Wasn't that kind of thing, right? But I remember there were good books. I used to read good books. There was a very good book that I used to read called Letters to Karen, and Karen's father was a counselor or a pastor or something.
Mhm.
And Karen's father wrote about all these things to her.
Mhm.
So we would read about it and we would discuss it.
Letters.
Yes, Letters to Karen, and he would tell her about marriage, what it is about, and all the different aspects and the different things you would expect. So
Yeah.
that was like a form of counseling, right?
Right.
The responsibility of love and loyalty to one another. We have to understand love and loyalty to one another. We have to understand the steadfastness of the task of building a family. It's serious business we are getting into, right? And the question is whether today young people are really paying attention to these
And
things
even
and
understand
understanding and even understanding what they are getting into. I think too then there must be a permanence of the bond,
Mhm.
right? And I don't know the extent to which people are prepared to stick and the issue understanding the issue of permanence, because permanence means till then do us part means speaks of permanence,
Mhm.
that the relationship is a permanent relationship,
Mhm. Mhm. Mhm.
and therefore it's not something where you jump in today and you get married today and then things break down and
And then you
your
divorce. So
relationship
you
break down,
don't go in
and
with
then
a
you
mindset to divorce.
you don't go in with a
You
mindset.
go in with a mindset to.
And I think
to
that's one of
hold
the
on.
problems that's happening, is that people are going in with the mindset that if it
But-
don't work, we can always get
But
divorced.
some of these secular views that marriage is a contract. If it's
Yes.
not working, I could just annul it.
If it's not working, well, we
And
just
move
come
on.
out, we get divorced,
And so
then we go
understanding
and
the definition of marriage is important, and
Right.
what God designed it for
Yes,
and
yes.
to be is the first thing I believe that a young adult has to understand. Hey, what is this marriage thing about?
And they have to understand that that marriage is a covenant.
Mhm.
A covenant, and a covenant is not something that can be broken.
Yeah.
Right? So, and as I was looking at an article that Reverend Dr. Taylor wrote on the moral meanings in marriage,
Mhm.
and he was saying, one of the things he said, um, He was saying that marriage is a covenant, a sovereign covenant. It is a covenant not only between the two who became married, but also between them and God. It is a sovereign covenant,
So it's serious.
right? God Himself is the supreme officiant, joining husband and wife together and making them one. This is what the Bible teaches in Malachi 2:14, where God, the Lord, had been witness between thee and the wife of thy youth, the wife of thy covenant. Did not He make you one? Yes. So it is a covenant. It's a sovereign covenant. It's a spiritual covenant, um, and also a standing covenant. Parties in a contract may, under certain conditions, break the contract, but a covenant, however, is for life. For the life of the covenanters, God's covenantal standard for marriage has not changed. So, marriage is serious. And I think
And understanding that is important.
it is important that young people, before you say I do, understand these things and get into it before you get into it. So before you get into marriage, you have to understand. And that's the reason why we see it important to deal with these
And
kinds
to
of
teach
topics.
it, but Mom, I
and
think
to
it's
teach
important
it.
to teach it because in our society now, in culture, we have it's very common in our Trinidad culture is the whole common law relationship where people live together and they don't get married.
Yes.
And then when they start talking about marriage, they say, well, if I get married to him, things might change. He might leave me. That whole
Yes.
concept, which is a wrong concept, which is a secular
wrong.
concept.
Right. And
You know?
which is not according to God's
Mhm.
design. God never designed it that way.
Mhm.
And I think too, you have to understand before you say I do. Reverend Knight, I like Reverend
She
Knight
gave
when she
us some
shared with us
practical,
some practical things that you need to look for before you say I do.
basic.
And it's basic, and we can testify to the fact that this is what understanding these things as you go along is what helps to keep your marriage, right? So she was talking about you must be able to recognize before you say I do. You must first of all understand what marriage, the definition of marriage.
Right, so that's the first point that we're establishing, ladies and gentlemen. For those of you who are single, for those of you who are in relationships, you've got to understand in a relationship that will end up leading into a marriage. You have got to understand what it is.
Yes.
What was it designed to do?
And which is what
institution. They refer to it as an institution of marriage.
Yes.
Marriage. You got to understand. You got to do your research.
It involves three key parts: the leaving, the cleaving, and the permanence, which is what Reverend Williams was talking about. So the leaving your former life with your family, right? The cleaving together. So and cleaving with there's a lot in cleaving. There's a lot of, because it's like here it is now, you are two persons close together, come from two different backgrounds. I think that's one of the things. You see,
that's another problem.
The first few years of marriage could be turbulent. And I think young people have to understand that. They have to understand.
You're
because
going to go through some turbulence.
Yeah, because they hear stories, they look at TV, they figure that that they live happily ever after. So people have the concept that this marriage, okay, I'm getting married, it was so nice and exciting on the day, and they live happily ever after. That is a myth.
But it will become happily after much work.
Over time.
Because I've listened to both Christian conversations and secular conversations, and in secular conversations in terms of which marriage has lasted for 20 years, and everybody talks about that too. But everybody,
in the beginning,
it's quite interesting, that even in the secular view, when they really talk, it's some of these principles that's what keeping them. Everybody talks about this turbulence and what it is that you have to go through.
Right.
The coming together of two people in a space. Ideas, thoughts, everything coming together, and
but
it could be rocky.
Yeah, because you have two different people from two different backgrounds coming together. We come from different kinds of homes, right? And even in the church, we have different kinds of homes, different kinds of. For instance, somebody coming from a single parent home is different to somebody coming from a two-parent home. Right,
and then all the principles that you're going to learn in your home.
All the principles that you have now. Yes, so you now make an adjustment. You're making adjustments. You have different habits. You have different different modus operandi, and that is what Sister
Sister
Williams,
Knight was
Sister
talking
Knight
about
was talking
that.
about that, right? So she was saying one thing you have to understand, that you it will require you to share your space. So you're accustomed being by yourself, and now you have to share your space. There are certain things that you don't share, you're not accustomed to sharing, and
There's certain things that you may have to be doing.
yes,
I remember Daddy spoke about that.
and,
He accustomed being a bit messy, get married to you, and you don't want to be messy.
no,
And that in itself could cause a whole
and that is an
volcano.
adjustment.
That's
Yeah,
a whole adjustment.
that is an adjustment, right? Because once somebody else comes into your life, you have to be prepared that there will be some things about yourself that you will have to give up.
Wow.
To sacrifice for the other person.
Sacrifice is a big
It calls
deal.
for sacrifice. So love is sacrificial, right? You may have been accustomed to, okay, so your mother wake you up every morning, you get up, you sleep late, your mother is accustomed preparing your breakfast, you get up, you sleep late, you get up, you get ready, you go to work, you have a devotion or whatever, you get ready, you go to work, and that's it. That's what you're accustomed doing at home. Now you're going to have your own home.
And
Now
have to
you,
realize-
the wife, have to get up in the morning,
Yeah.
you're changing, your habits are changing. You now have to get up and prepare for your family. You are now stepping in the place of your mother. Your mother is not going to be there to do it for you, right? And you and now your husband, he might be accustomed to his mother doing that too.
Yeah. One of my girlfriends told me that.
Yes.
Accustomed to the mother doing bread a certain way, and she's like,
Yes.
I don't do that.
And now you come, you don't do that. And then
I don't do that.
And then they compare you, compare what you do
what
with the
mommy
mother.
will do to what you will do.
Yes. You understand?
Yeah.
So there are all these little conflicts, a whole lot of differences, and it's like you are trying to work these things out. All of these things.
You know what she
cause
brought?
friction.
Reverend Knight spoke about the new concept today. So, and this is another thing with women who are working now. Back in the day, women played the role of the housewife.
Right.
They nurtured, they raised their kids, they took care of their home. But today is a different day where we have the working woman, the woman who may be studying, and she used the term house husbands.
Yes.
For the men who may be working at home
Mhm.
and they're not out. And that whole role, that whole change in roles in relationships today.
Yeah. And all of that requires adjustment.
But I think that requires, obviously, the two parties will have to sit down and have a conversation
So
of what they are prepared to deal with in their relationship.
Right. And that's why she was talking about the importance of discussing all that before. Now, before you don't really realize that all these things going to come up.
Mhm.
So no matter how much discussion you have before, no matter how much communication, or there's communication and there must be communication, parties must be talking and discussing things. But a lot of things, you are totally naive to certain things. You don't expect that, certain things will come up. And hence the reason why it's important that we have sessions like this, so people will understand issues like this will arise.
Mhm.
How will you work it out,
Mhm.
right? And you will have to work out among yourself, because even if he's a house husband, how do you work it out as the working wife? Now, yes, as once we are working, we are tired. When we go out, when we come home from work in the afternoon, we're tired.
Mhm.
The thing is that you have to now adjust your time.
Yeah.
If it means, I remember
You
when
have to have some kind of balance.
Yes, you have to have a balance. You have to adjust your time to suit, because here it is now. In the morning, you have to get up to go to work, but you have to prepare breakfast. You have to pack lunch kits. You have to prepare your child or children, prepare for your husband, all of that. And therefore, it means as a wife, you have to sit down and work out, plan your time,
Mhm.
right? If it means that you start doing things on the evening before, putting things in place, right? Make sure you prepare certain things. There are certain things that you could do from before. You have to rise earlier in the morning, and and you still have to get to work for 8 o'clock and go through all the traffic and leave home at time. So therefore, you have to plan.
I think I was listening to a conversation because it is not an excuse for us as women just because we are career women not to be women of our homes.
Yeah.
And I was reading an interesting article, or was it a phrase or something that I saw online, where she may be the CEO, of the company,
But when she's
or
home,
she is the manager of the business. But let me
Yeah.
tell you something, she has her home under control. She gets up, she cleans, she prepares for her husband, she prepares for her children, and she goes out into the marketplace
yes.
and works. And so that responsibility as a woman still needs to be there.
But
You
then
can't use it as an excuse.
yes, but then again, as Sister Knight was sharing with us, that responsibilities must be shared, and therefore
Yes.
the husband must be prepared to help and to share,
Yes.
and not just sit down. Now he might have been accustomed to his mother doing everything, and he sit down home waiting on
But
the
now
mother.
you can't
But
overdo
now
it.
you have to you can't just sit down and be because
Let me-
it is you have a working wife,
Yeah.
and
So
therefore
let me
the
help you.
parties
Let
yeah
me cook. Let
yes,
me take
and
care of
that
the
is what
children,
love that is
so
what
that you
love
could sleep.
that is what
So
love is about.
it's this sacrifice
It's
that has
sacrificial.
to take place.
Yes. So therefore, the husband has to recognize and listen. My wife, she has feelings. She's a human.
Mhm.
Yes, she's willing to do different things, but I can help.
Yeah.
You know, and
Important. And not just
now those things help to bond.
and to build the relationship and
Those
make it
things
closer.
like that are what help to build the relationship and help to get the parties closer together.
Mhm.
Yes,
Mhm.
and so
And then they learn to work and understand each other
Working
better. They
together.
love each other deeper. They build their own synergy, and they build their own way that, hey, this is how we do things.
Yes.
And it has kept us.
yes,
And
and that understanding by the husband is key to the help in the relationship,
Mhm.
to bonding in the
Okay,
relationship.
so it's important. So
So
it's two. It
both
can't just
parties,
be one person.
yes, it must be both parties, and we must be willing to share our time, willing to share responsibility. It's about a sharing. Love is sharing, right? It's sharing, and the more things we share about, it is the better it is for the relationship, and that is what.
So you're telling me all these things is what I have to know before I get.
All of those things
These
you
things
need
are
to know
important.
about. You need to know about because
These
it
are
is
big
key.
things
These are
that you
things,
discuss.
and these are the little things that make or break a marriage and make or break a relationship.
Mhm.
And I think what's happening is that a lot of young people are getting into marriage, not
And they're
recognizing that
missing-
all these things are
missing
important,
some stuff.
right? And therefore, that is what is causing the breakup. The other thing is that young people have to understand is that there will be conflict along the way. So that when you experience the first conflict, you don't jump and run because you have
I'm going
a
back
conflict,
by my mother.
and you run by your mother's house because you have
I'm
the
going
first
by my
conflict.
mother's house.
You're gonna have disagreements because we in the first place, men and women think differently.
Extremely different.
Yes,
Men are
as someone says, men and women are from different planets because one from
different.
Venus, one from Mars, because we are miles apart in our thinking. God designed us like that, opposite to each other.
Mhm.
But in the relationship, love, because of love and understanding, we get to understand. Men get to understand how his wife is thinking. A man gets to understand how his wife sees things. She gets to understand how her husband sees things. And we must be prepared to understand each other and to accept certain things and also to make certain adjustments.
Yes.
You don't just sit down and say, this is me and this is how I see it and that's it. No.
Dangerous. Stubborn. You want to keep things your own way.
Yes, and it can happen. Anytime you decide to get married, you have to make adjustments, and you have to recognize that adjustments have to be made along the way. Yes,
That's
so
some powerful points that Reverend Knight brought up.
yeah, that was one of the important points that she brought up.
Mhm.
And she also spoke about, but we both must put on the mind of Christ.
Yeah, which is the first point. Just
Yes.
being saved and being.
And
You've got
that
to be
is
equally
why-
yoked.
Yes,
You've got to be equally yoked. That
And
was a
that
big
is-
thing. That's a big thing. Listening to a Christian
Right.
conversation for singles, somebody asks a question about what about dating somebody who may not be a Christian. It's not going to work.
it's not
And
going
so
to
the
work.
person says it's not going to work because our thinking is different, our focus is different. Me being a believer and how I will want to raise my children, how I want to live in my home is going to be different
Yes,
from you.
yes.
We're going to clash from day
We're
one.
going to have
Don't do it.
conflicts.
It doesn't make sense. It leads to crisis.
It leads
And
to
no
crisis.
matter how
And we
much
are
we
warned.
try to water down what the word says, let's just be open and say
No.
it doesn't work.
It doesn't work.
It makes no sense.
Disobeying the word never works.
It makes no sense.
And that's why the word warns us, don't be unequally yoked together with
Yeah, it's a
unbelievers.
complete crisis.
Don't be unequally yoked.
It's
And
a
it
big
is true.
crisis.
Yeah, they can't work. They can't work. It comes like some of those plugs and so on that we have where they are designed differently. They're two different designs.
And
They
you're
can't
trying to
fit.
fit the plug
It can't
into
fit.
the regular,
It would never
but the
fit.
plug can't fit because it wasn't
Never
made.
fit.
It wasn't designed
Yes,
to
we
fit.
were designed that way. And so it is important that we both put on the mind of Christ. And as we put on the mind of Christ, and as we go through experiences, that is what helps help us to adjust and to glue together. So you find as years pass and as you stick it out. The thing is that you mustn't even consider. There must not be a consideration of divorce, regardless of all the conflict and how hard it is.
For mommy,
That should not be a consideration.
In the difficult, somebody might challenge you and say, "What about in the difficult situations of infidelity
Okay,
and
so
abuse,
I have seen
physical
extreme,
abuse and domestic
right?
violence?"
So they are extreme.
And as an attorney, how do you advise a client?
They are extreme. Okay, so by the time the clients come to us, most times they have already made up their mind with respect to what they're going to do. And even if, I mean, there have been times when I felt clearly when I listened to the story of the client, I realized this is a situation that requires counseling, and I would refer them for counseling. Right?
That's a big deal.
In some cases, you see, okay, there could possibly, be some hope in this situation. So you advise them. To seek counseling, right? We are not counselors, but we would advise and refer them for counseling. And that
So
kind of
therefore,
thing.
pre-counseling is important.
So therefore, the pre-counseling is important.
Post-counseling is important.
Post-counseling is
Even
also
after
important.
you are married, it is okay if there's a little ruffles. Let us go for counseling before it turns into a bonfire and the volcano breakthrough.
That's right.
And it's total chaos. So post-marriage
counseling is always important all along the way. All along the way, because a counselor would be able to advise you on certain.
But that is very interesting,
trends.
and that is how the law sees things. And the law first sees it of a way of you all to reconcile, and that is pretty interesting.
Oh yes,
the law promotes reconciliation.
The law promotes reconciliation,
and that's important.
Not only in marriage, in all conflicts, in all issues. The first line is that the court advises you to advise to put forward counseling and reconciliation as a first line, the first thing. So we always try to work things out.
Interesting.
Right? We try to have meetings between the parties, there are times when there's so much emotion, however. In these marital situations, there's a lot of emotion. And there are times when the parties can't talk. And as the attorneys, we have to talk for them. We have to try and I've been in situations where I would, even though the attorney on the other side they want to get up and run, I said no, we're not leaving here until we settle this. And we would sit down and we would work it out and we would work things out. Sometimes it may not necessarily work out that the parties decide that they're not going to get divorced, but we work things out in terms of the children, what's going to happen in terms of the support for the children, and we work things out. The court always encourages parties to talk and settle their matters and reconcile. And if it is you have said, and in fact, it goes to the point where if the parties come up to, the court will allow you to come up with your own settlement, and then you indicate what is the settlement to the judge, and then the judge would make the order according to what the parties have decided. Why? Because when parties decide their matters and parties agree on their matters, they are more likely to be satisfied than when the court decides. So the court doesn't jump to make a decision first. The judge doesn't jump to make a decision. The judge allows you to work out your stories. Work it out and then tell them.
That is a powerful.
Yes.
That is a powerful thing. So, ladies and gentlemen, we're just talking briefly about before I say I do. We're soon going to be finished. We had some powerful speakers over the past week. Reverend Carlisle Williams, Reverend Dan Knights, Reverend Kenrick Burgess.
And we encourage them to go back and listen to those tapes.
Just some snippets into the importance of this thing called marriage. For those who may be courting, maybe in a relationship, maybe thinking about getting into a relationship, the importance of understanding what marriage is about. Reverend Burgess said here, it's a covenant, it is God's idea, it is God's standard. It is important for us to understand the definitions.
Yes.
We were talking about the fact that building our relationships on God is key. It is God who created it, and therefore we have got to depend on God to take us through it. We talk about that word sacrifice and being able to sacrifice, and it's a give. It's a give. You have to compromise in
It's give
terms.
and
You have
take.
to give and take.
It's give and take.
You have to. It's something that it's not all flowery. It's not about the big ring, the nice dress, the venue, the honeymoon, but it's really what happens after.
Yeah.
And the work that you're willing to put into this relationship. So it's for that. So everything that happens before is important.
And it calls for a lot of prayer. Listen to me, you have to work with God, right? And this is why I'm saying our foundation is important. And hence the reason why the word warns us about the unequal yoke. Because all along the way, your marriage, your relationship must be watered and soaked with prayer. Because it is God who has to help us sort out our differences. It is the Lord that helps us to adjust to each other, to make the adjustments, to make the understanding. There sometimes you may not understand your spouse, how your spouse is thinking on a particular issue, on a particular matter. You don't understand why he can't see the things that you see, that you understand, and so on. But it is prayer. It is the Lord that helps you. You have to center your marriage around the Lord. And this is what helps your marriage to last long. Because you base it on the Lord. You don't follow emotions. There's sometimes you might be so frustrated that you just want to give up. You just feel to walk out, but you cannot follow your emotions. You've got to follow what God says. So basing your marriage on the rock, Jesus Christ, on the word of God, you must be rooted and grounded in God. That is what keeps marriage. That is why we can testify to the fact that our marriage lasted 43 years and counting. 50 years
30,
and counting.
20,
30 years and
10.
counting. Yes, because it is rooted and grounded in the Lord.
So,
and it is the Lord who helps you.
Before we wrap up, and so, ladies and gentlemen, we will be continuing this conversation next week and the week after that. I want you to say something to the singles. Would you say that it is important for us? And I think single seasons are important because it is the season of your life, number one, to understand who you are. We talk about just going into a relationship as a whole. You understand? And a whole person coming with another whole person to form this relationship.
Right.
And we see there's a lot of brokenness and scars and difficulties that people may experience. And I think this is a big key. Different scars and wounds that people may experience, if not healed, if there's not any deliverance or healing, it will affect the relationship when two come together.
Yes.
And so that season of your life where you take to, number one, really surrender and commit your life to the Lord, and also allowing in surrender the Lord to heal you of your wounds.
That's right.
And your brokenness.
Yeah.
You cannot come into a relationship with somebody else if you're broken.
No.
And key things, history of abuse, history of trauma in childhood. You understand? And history of intense things that may have happened. You are now trying to come together as somebody. Speak to that.
It is important.
Will that affect the relationship in a big way? Is that a fact that you would
will.
have seen in counseling?
It will, and therefore it is important to get counseling before. It's important to seek counseling, and as what you find happening in a lot of abusive situations where children grow up in abusive homes, where there are different forms of abuse, a lot of times people cannot speak about it because there is so much pain, particularly, especially where there are cases of sexual abuse and so on. And so it remains covered, right? And then the person may go into marriage with that still covered, never seeking counseling, never speaking about it. The husband never knows that it actually happened. That is a recipe for disaster. It is important that counseling be sought before, right? And healing. healing.
Right. So
There's
so
need
it
for
is
healing.
important.
It's like Brother Cunningham is saying here, and we want to welcome Brother Alan Cunningham and all set, and he's making quite a lot of contribution there. And he's saying one of the things he's saying is that we are image bearers who reflect Christ and the church. Men must love like Christ, laying down our lives for our bride as Christ did the church. And then he was saying about when you're talking about the pain, like a man who has a toothache, he gets it fixed right away. So when our wife hurts, we can act immediately, and that's true. So if you have you go into marriage with the hurt and the pain. You carry all that hurt.
Yeah.
You carry all that pain. You react to the situations negative, and everything that if it's a wife, for instance, everything the husband does that reminds her about the
Of what happened in
situation,
her childhood, she will lash out at the
she will lash
husband.
out and she reacts, and she's only seeing the abuser.
Yeah.
She's not seeing the husband, she's seeing the abuser. And this is how serious that is.
This is serious.
Yes.
Because there was a testimony that I heard about a woman who had been sexually abused, never disclosed it in the marriage. And her husband just came to give her a hug from behind, and she nearly killed him. She pulled out a knife and nearly stabbed him. And it was then he was traumatized. She was traumatized. And then it was only then that
It came out.
he found that his wife was abused. And that kind of touch was not a touch that triggered a response,
right.
And it triggered a memory that could have led to something dangerous.
Right. And therefore, this is why as singles, you have to work on yourself. Like Auntie Peggy is saying here, singles must carry into the marriage
Your
whole
whole self.
your best self. Therefore, work on yourself prior to marriage.
Yeah.
Yes? And Brother Cunningham is saying abuse equals control. We must imitate Christ, who never controls us but gives us all a choice. I must give my wife a choice as Christ does. And he did. Yes? So those experiences that you would have had before must be worked on before.
And it's important.
Yes, and it is important. So that's the importance of real deep counseling. Not just dealing with any superficial, something superficial.
It's a lot.
There's need for deep counseling.
It's a lot.
Before.
It's a lot.
Yes, it is important. And these are the things that make or break a marriage.
Now, Mommy, it is so much more that we can talk, but we have got to wrap up now. But there's so much to this. We glean so much. We encourage you to go back and to listen to these sessions over the last week, and also what is upcoming this week as well.
Yes.
But it is a lot.
Yeah.
It is a lot of things that you have to
It's
discuss.
a whole lot. It's a lot.
It's what you have to discover.
Right.
It's what you have to learn. It's
what you have to learn about the person.
It's everything.
Like Reverend Burgess gave us a checklist on love, courtship, and marriage. And he's saying, how much do I know him or her? His heart, his integrity. How much do I know about his heart, his integrity, his thoughts, his friends, his or her attitude.
Let's use that vice versa, both for the male and the female.
Yeah, his or her attitude, his or her
home, beliefs,
home background, beliefs,
parents,
right,
relatives,
health,
finance,
values, self-esteem, education, convictions, commitment, plans,
goals, concerns.
It's a lot.
It's a lot.
It really is a lot.
It is a lot. It's a lot.
So it is, and hence the reason why marriage must not be entered into unadvisedly. It is not something to be taken lightly. It is not something to be flippant about and just look at the externals and the superficials and all that.
It's way more than that.
Yes, it's way more. And these are the things that are important to making or breaking your marriage and determining how long your marriage will last. All these things are important.
So, ladies and gentlemen, we really thank you. This discussion could go on and on and on. We did 2 powerful topics. We did our introduction to our new book by Reverend Burgess, Love That Will Not Let Me Go, a dynamic work on mother and appreciation for women who are mothers and recognizing the role of motherhood, how powerful what God says about mother. And it's a powerful dedication to women today, and we're going to be going through that over the next couple of weeks straight up to Mother's Day.
Yes.
And also this powerful topic of marriage. Before I say I do love courtship marriage, where we see things in society that is breaking down. It's breaking down. And sometimes as a single, it could make you a little scared because you wonder, oh my gosh, if this will happen to you, if this will happen. But if we do things God's way, things will work out. If we do things God's way. And as Brother Cunningham shared about that word, surrender. It's a word we don't like. We don't like to have to surrender, but what God is asking of us is to surrender to Him. And so even before you are married, we have got to have a relationship with Him. We've been talking about for the past 2 years, our relationship with God, getting to know Jesus for yourself, spending that time in His presence, and surrender. Even after you are married, it is important for you as a couple to have that relationship with God. You're still surrendering.
Yes.
And so surrender does not change, and it's something that we do actively, and it's key in our lives. And so we encourage you as we go forth into a new week, and as we go and let's surrender our lives to God. Let's surrender our days to God. We need His wisdom. We need His guidance. We need His direction in difficult circumstances. He's going to help you in your relationship. He's going to help you to choose the right guy. He's going to help you in your marriage, even if it's maybe a bit shaky now. You've got to surrender back to the Creator of the institution of marriage. We've got to surrender to Him and allow Him to change our lives.
Yes, and He knows best. God knows the plan. He knows what it is all about. He is the counselor. He is our best counselor.
Yeah.
And we build our life, first of all, on the Word of God, and you continue your marriage on the Word of God, and you train your children on the Word of God. Everything. And that is what we mean when Jesus meant when He spoke about building your house upon a rock. We must build our house on our family, our life as individuals. Our marriage must be built on the rock, Jesus Christ, and the rock of the Word of God. And this is what will cause our marriage to stand and last for 45, 50 years.
60, my grandparents were 60 years.
Right, on 60 years. The other day I saw a young couple, 86 years.
Yeah.
You know, it is the foundation. That foundation is critical.
And so we encourage you, as you go out this week, continue trusting our favorite scripture from Philippians 4. Don't worry about anything. Pray about everything. Tell God what you need and give Him thanks for what He has done. Thanks for joining us on Global Partners Caribbean Mission TT. We want you to like and follow us on YouTube, like and subscribe. You can follow us on Facebook, our page, Global Partners Caribbean Mission, and also on our Facebook group. And so we thank you. We celebrate with Brother Cunningham, who is celebrating 30 years this year in his relationship. So we have some people who have really run, and God has been faithful.
And it is because of God.
God has
and
been
all
faithful.
that God has done, what God continues to do.
And
we also want to encourage you to follow us this week, because this week we are continuing with sessions on the marriage vows before I say I do. And tomorrow night we have Reverend Calvin.
Left, right, left, say we moving on together. Take we instructions from the Savior. Yeah, we taking the gospel around the world. Left, right, left, we moving left, right, round the world. Left, right, left, we marching left, right, taking it round the world. Taking the gospel